I know that you already know this because you've taken the time to download this most amazing podcast, but you are listening to the none other than the Paulie Z Show. I am Rich Ward, the Duke of Metal from Fozzy and Mojo. Thank you for your time. We love you. Now send money.
Yo, 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 welcome to the Paulie Z Show, and we are on episode 21, and today my special guest is none other than Rich Ward. And for those who don't know, Rich Ward is one of the original founding members of a band called Mojo, and is now in the band Fozzy, which we'll be playing with at the end of this month, actually. So, Rich, say hello.
Hey, hello, Paulie Z, man. Thanks for having me in your personal world there today. Having some good chats about rock and roll, and as you said, man, I can't believe it. We get to share the stage together 2 weeks from now.
Finally. Well, yeah, at the taping of this episode, it'll be 2 weeks, so probably when it airs, it'll be a week away. Because usually,
sorry about that.
Yeah. What are you doing?
I needed the little Iggy on the side of when it's airing. Sorry,
Richie, what are you doing here? You're confusing everybody. everybody's going to show up to BB King's a week after our show.
Blame it on the fact that I'm from the South. We're all slow down here, at least allegedly.
Well, so you're where are you from? Georgia?
Yeah. I live in Atlanta suburbs.
All
I
right.
used to live in Atlanta, but I got tired of coming home from tour, and my front door was kicked in, and all my stuff was gone.
And are you still out there?
Yeah, man, I love living in Atlanta. It's a cool city because it's kind of like if you grew up if you were born in the South and you were attracted to not being a farmer or being kind of in the rural high school football scene, everybody moves to Atlanta because it's the only kind of metropolitan city in the Southeast. So it attracts a lot of cool musicians and and it's about the only place in the Southeast that's going to get big concerts. So it was cool because I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, home of NASCAR, and probably that's about it. And Ric Flair, I should say. And then I moved to Atlanta because I knew that, just like you, playing music, if you're a musician, even though it's kind of cool to be the best known guitar player in your small town, it's much better to be, surrounded by kind of an intact music scene with some things going on, and you got all the big concerts coming through town. You had a much better chance of making it living in a big city than you do living in Greenville, South Carolina, or Chattanooga, Tennessee.
See, that's weird because I'll be honest with you, I've heard different theories on that. Like, me growing up, being born and raised, our whole band in Brooklyn, New York. It seems like I always wondered, is it the opposite? Because kind of like you said, when you're in a smaller town, it's easier for you to really rise to the top and be like the best band. And then you can expand and sort of conquer territories that are surrounding you. Whereas when you let's say you go to Atlanta, I don't really know how Atlanta would compare to New York, but I know New York it's so hard. They say it's like, one of the most difficult places to break from because there's so much competition. There's so much to do. So to try to get people to come see you play on any given night of the week is like pulling teeth because they have 500 other options. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you have the entire industry intact there, so you don't have to have a big crowd and a big following to do a 7 o'clock show at the Lion's Den or the Continental, or I don't even know. I know the names of these bars change names over time, but I remember when Mojo first started. I mean, we were selling out the Masquerade here in town without a record deal, and that's doing 1,500 people. I mean, we had a huge following in Atlanta, and then, like you said, we were expanding to Tampa and going up to Tennessee and in the Carolinas. But we still were not on any industry radar at all. So our management booked us a series of shows in New York, and we would play at 7 o'clock. It was barely after dinner, and management explained to us that you've got to do it then because record industry people, they want to be able to go straight from work and see you play. And I was like, we don't have any fans in New York. Well, it doesn't matter. You'll play in front of nobody except for 15 or 20 people that I'll have come out to the show. And And we ended up getting a record deal off of doing those silly little industry shows, which were sterile and terrible.
Yeah, I hate
No
those.
PA, no monitors, no audience to play off of. It was lame. It was awful, but made good contacts and made some good relationships. And so, but I hear what you're saying, though. I mean, like you said, it could be equally as frustrating to have a real difficult time trying to wave your hand on the street corner and say, "Look at me," when there's 50,000 people doing that.
Yeah,
We've toured with a lot of New York bands over the years, and so we've with Stuck Mojo, we toured with Type O Negative and Life of Agony and Marauder and Biohazard, and so we've got a lot of cool relationships with all these New York guys. And I, of course, from being an Atlanta, Georgia boy, I always thought, man, how cool would it be to live in New York, man? That's where all the bands are from. But interesting to hear it from the other side of it.
yeah. I think it's always the grass is greener on the other side. I always say, like, I've had this issue of New York versus LA. Like, I always wondered if we relocated to LA, I wonder if that would have, how that would have affected our career. And just because you figure more people go out because the weather's nice, year round, and everything closes at 2, so where everyone's going to be at a certain period of time. And I don't know, I just feel like our style of rock music seems to be more appreciated over there. But who knows? There's no way to know. Everybody from LA wants to come to New York, so it's like vice versa. But let's go to Stuck Mojo for a second before we start talking about Fozzy. Give me a little. I have to be honest with you. I know of the band. I know some of the stuff you guys have done. I know you were pretty much kind of like pioneers with the rap rock stuff, right? Am I correct in saying that? And so give me a little bit of history. Like, how did that happen?
Well, in the late '80s, the big hair metal thing was happening, and I was really growing up, I was just like the biggest metalhead in the world, and I did like some of the melodic stuff. Like, I loved bands like Dokken and Kiss in the '80s. Like, so I wasn't just into Maiden and Priest and Metallica. I did like the more kind of melodic commercial side of things, and I even liked bands like White Lion when they came out. I thought they had great songs, and I was kind of into that.
White Lion from my neighborhood.
I know, I'm a
good.
huge fan, and even I've had a chance to meet Lomenzo over the years because he played with Zach, and like real rock players, even the dudes who play for Winger. I mean, talk about the best of the best players. And Kip can sing his ass off. But I think the thing that turned me off about that whole period in the late '80s was that the lyrics were all kind of marshmallow fluff. It was kind of like a music that didn't have a cause, and it seemed a bit of an empty vessel, even though, like, I loved all the players and the music was interesting as a guitar player.
And the girls were hot. But the girls were hot. Who the hell cares about the lyrics? The girls were fucking
I know,
hot.
But you got to remember, I was 18 at the time, and I grew up in a suburban, middle-class white neighborhood, and I was kind of one of those guys who felt like I didn't really know who I was. I knew I was a rocker, and I played guitar all day long. I was obsessed with music, but I felt like I lacked an identity. So I was like a lot of late teens do. I was going through that period where I was just trying to figure out, who am I? What am I supposed to do? And I met a couple of black musicians in Atlanta at the time who were doing kind of this hybrid of funk and heavy metal and reggae, and it was really cool. And all of a sudden I started hanging out with people from these other cultures that I'd never experienced before. And here's a little Richie Ward from suburban world, like, all of a sudden thrown in the mix with these who I considered people who a few years earlier I would have said the guys from the other side of the railroad tracks, and yet we were just alike. There was nothing different except for that culturally we came from completely different sides of the world, and it was a great experience for me because I started listening to different types of music and learning about pocket and groove and things that, as a fan of Van Halen, I hadn't really thought of, because I only thought of like the lick and the riff.
Well,
I
yeah,
didn't really
that's
think
definitely
of how to play it.
right. I
You know what I
remember
mean?
my bass player. You know, my brother is the bass player in FozZ02. I remember when he first joined Trans Siberian Orchestra. They kind of taught him about the pocket. I remember him coming to me the first time he told me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm learning about the pocket," and I'm like, "The what?" Like, what do you mean, the pocket in your pants? And I'm like, no. It's like, I didn't, you don't, you're right. Like a lot of, especially the 80s hair metal bands, Van Halen's probably not the best example because I think they definitely had a great swing.
They were, but
yeah.
my point was that I didn't know that that's what it was that I liked about them.
Right.
It's like Pantera. They grooved like nobody else, but I just didn't know that's what it was. I just thought it was cool. I didn't know that Bonham was swinging in the pocket. I just knew I liked it.
Right.
And it was interesting that, like you said, until your brother had someone explain it to you. And that's the interesting thing about it is until someone can articulate what that looks like. To me, Van Halen was awesome, but I didn't really know why I loved him. I didn't know that he was grooving his ass off. I just knew he was a badass player, and I focused on the riffs and the licks more than how he actually delivered them.
Well, I was the same way with all the bands that I loved. I mean, especially, Kiss is a great example too, because if you really think about it, Gene Simmons is an underrated bass player. If you really listen, his bass playing is very melodic. And Peter Criss, listen, he's not the greatest drummer technically in the world, but he brought that jazz feel to Kiss. Like he had that sort of loose swing to the way he played those songs. And as a kid growing up, all I cared about was the makeup and the fireworks and the blood and everything. And as I got older and I listened, are you a Kiss fan, Rich? Or
I didn't discover Kiss until the 80s because my parents forbid me to listen to it because of because of course they were Knights in Satan's service. So,
yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. So I was stuck with the Grease soundtrack and the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack until I got into junior high school, and then I discovered Kiss in the 80s. But I loved Lick It Up and Animalize, and then I went back from there.
Well, if you think about it, so if you went from Animalize back, think about the difference in drumming between Eric Carr and that like powerhouse rock drumming and then Peter Criss. And anytime, if you ever hear a band try to cover Kiss, it never sounds the same. And it's like I couldn't put my finger on it until, I learned about rhythm and stuff like that. And it was like, he's swinging more.
Yeah.
He's not a power drummer.
You're exactly right. It's the same thing with AC/DC. You'll never see an AC/DC song covered properly because it's people, and every time I have someone that tells me, Phil Rudd, anybody can play that, I want to smack them.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is that Phil Rudd, like the specificity of exactly how he plays it is with the brilliance. It's not the four on the floor. Yeah, sure, you can play it, but the thing is you can't play it like him. And that's the arrogance of kind of the whole musician thing that kind of has turned me off a little bit on some of the technical music stuff because there's a bit of I can play a million notes and this and that. And trust me, I love Dream Theater, I love Malmsteen. There's some guys out there that really can play technical music, and they still do it within the context of really well played. There's still like a vibe there.
Yeah.
But anytime you hear someone starting to dog on Gene Simmons' bass playing, or you hear someone dog on Phil Rudd's drumming, I start to recoil a little bit and start to question whether this conversation can go forward any further.
I know. But again, it's like you said, it's something that you don't really. It's something you kind of you overlook growing up. You kind of, there's certain levels. I noticed there are levels to things. Like, there's the first thing, even if you think about a woman, right? What's the first thing that gets you is to how she looks, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You look at her titties. I mean, that's the first thing I look at. I'm a titty man. So
that's the standard go-to.
You got to go to the titties,
Yeah.
And it's the look, but then, then it's a little bit of this, then it's a little bit of that, and then you peel back into layers. So it's the same thing with music. I mean, I remember as I got older, I started understanding, like you're saying, more of why I liked one thing over the other and why this version of a song sounded so sterile. And then you hear, all those tribute albums. You ever see those albums that come out with a whole bunch of guest star and they kind of cover different, bands and stuff like that. And
Oh yeah, trust me,
oh,
Jericho and I did one of them. It's terrible. Like I listen back to it and I'm thinking, oh, because it's kind of like a factory, And
yeah.
I enjoyed the process, that it was cool to work with Bob Kulick and and him bring us in, but it was like, okay, let's hurry up and do this. And I never got to meet anybody else who played on the it was Mike Inez on drums and on bass, and Fred Curry on drums, and but I never met them. Like we never played
Oh, you
together. I
just
just
like
kind of had,
emailed the tracks and stuff.
yeah, and it so when I listen back to it, it was so funny. Just a sidebar, just not to go too far. My brother-in-law gave me a mix CD, and I was listening to some of the tracks, kind of going, how you do, you bump next song, and I heard this lick, and my wife looked over at me and says, "That doesn't sound very good." I was like, "Nah, it's some. I think it's a Kiss song. Like it just sounds crappy." And it was me,
Ah,
like me playing the guitar on it. I had been so long since I heard it. It was actually me playing it. Like thinking, oh God, like when I say that stinks, and I don't even recognize it as my own playing.
that's bad news.
Yeah, that's bad news. And like so any case, we'll get back on truck. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're
Why
right,
why
man.
you tangent so far off the track? You take us so far off. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Have
We
you
were
ever done,
talking about
Rich? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever done an interview? Let me ask you a question.
Never. This is my first. I need
Yeah,
you to
let
guide
me
me,
teach.
man. Walk me, hold my hand.
Okay, let me hold your hand.
Hansel and
Okay,
Gretel.
here's what we're gonna do. We got to stay on track. No, I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. As long as we come back, though. Let's come back to it real quick. So, basically, well, you know what? This is a good segue into how you got into Fozzy, because Fozzy, when I had Chris Jericho on the show, he was telling me started out basically as a cover band. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true, because me and the guys in Stuck Mojo, when we would come home from a tour, and let's say we had a 2-week period where we were at home, we started saying, man, it'd be kind of cool to put together some 80s metal tribute band. And it kind of like what became the whole Steel Panther thing. We used to dress up in costumes, and we called the band Fozzy Osbourne, and we would play, Rat and Maiden and Priest and Motley Crue and Twisted Sister, and it kind of came out of every night at the end of a Stuck Mojo set, we would always play some 80s metal cover, whether it would be like, but it would be like something like too obvious, like We're Not Gonna Take It, or Lay It Down by Rat. We'd always pick the real obvious song and make it super heavy, and bring the whole crowd up on stage, and it would just become chaos. And that's where it kind of came out of. And we played a couple of gigs as Fozzy Osbourne in Atlanta, and it was always like the guys from Stuck Mojo, a couple of guys from Double Drive, Butch Walker came out and jammed with us a few times, the guys from Seven Dust. So it kind of became this little party band in Atlanta. And after I met Chris backstage at a WCW event in '99, and we just got to talking and had all these common interests in music, and we were admitting all of these bands that we loved that you wouldn't admit in the press because you're too embarrassed to, a la Stryper, and just like talking about these cool metal bands we grew up on, and we just came around to, hey, he was telling me, hey, I played bass and sang when I was in high school, and man, I kind of, I had to leave that side of my life behind because, as a wrestler, I really don't have a lot of spare time. And I said, well, man, I've got this Fozzy Osbourne band that we, play covers and jam, maybe, 3 or 4 times a year. You want to set up a gig and you be the guest lead vocalist for the band for the night? And he said, yeah. So ironically, we just, that was the genesis of it. We played a gig. We never rehearsed together. We just picked songs out. I took his word for it that he could sing because I had no idea. We just showed up, played the gig. It was the funniest gig. It was so much fun.
And
we
did you
did all
guys
this
dress
Spinal
up?
Tap stuff.
You dressed up and
yeah,
everything?
Man.
Wait, so hold on,
yeah.
Chris Jericho dressed up too?
Of course.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was, and he was like the perfect blend between David Lee Roth and Paul Stanley. Like, we all went completely crazy on the gimmicks. We wanted it to be so ridiculous because at that time, Stuck Mojo was kind of this, we were I guess musically we weren't like Biohazard, but we had the same kind of street level kind of reputation where the band, so we wanted to kind of protect that and not try to muddy the water. So if we were going to do another project, we wanted it to be ridiculous, so that it wasn't like, oh, these is the guys in Stuck Mojo and Chris Jericho were just doing a band. It had to be like so pompous and stupid that we could explain that it was the complete delineation between the two bands. But we had such a good time with it, and after the show was over, we were backstage in the dressing room all laughing about how crazy it was. I mean, we even did this thing where we had a stagehand lower Jericho's towel on a string suspended in the rafters. So after every song, this towel would kind of just lower from the rafters down. He would pat his face with it, and it would slowly go back up into. It was just stupid, but like it was fun,
Right, of course. Well, I mean, Steel Panther's a great example because every time I've seen them a few times already, and they were on our show Z-Rock, and I didn't know who they were when they came on the show, and they were just so over the top that it was funny. It was like you kind of just. Because, like you said, because it was so over the top, it was like you kind of gave them carte blanche to do whatever. It was like, oh, okay, I get it. This is supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, so whatever they say or do is acceptable.
That's exactly right. And the other part of it is, too, is you've been in the music industry for so many years that you know that the music industry is just, it's like a sausage plant. I mean, it is the most brutal meat grinder of all meat grinders because you put your heart and soul in your music, and you work so hard, and then all it takes is a few critics to write reviews that say these guys suck, their songs are terrible, and then you get a record deal and you're out on tour, and all of a sudden your record company tells you, hey, we're pulling your tour support, sales aren't where we want them to be, or you can't find your product on the shelves, and yet you've been out on the road for 8 months, and every town you go to, it's hard to find your product, and it's such a brutal industry, and it's such a soul-decimating situation that Fozzy, like for me and for the rest of us, was like a moment where we could actually play our guitars and drums and bass and smile and go, wow, This is pretty cool. There's no pressure. The intention was never to get a record deal. The intention was never to like have a career with it. It was just like, it was almost like rock and roll vacation camp for us. And it was great. And, at the time, Chris hasn't really thought about singing. So his vocals weren't the greatest because, let's be honest, anybody who sang when they were in high school and then doesn't work on that craft for 15 years and just decides to step on stage, it wasn't great. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I have to tell you, it was perfect because if he sang every note pitch perfect and it was great, it wouldn't have been good. You know what I mean?
Right,
it was
of course.
The imperfections that made the whole thing amazing. And as a band, it's not like we were, the rest of us in the band were actually rehearsing Mental Health by Quiet Riot or Slide It In by Whitesnake. We just worked on them a little bit at home and figure we jammed through it. And so.
But was it for Chris? Was it for Chris? Was it weird for him? Like how famous was he at that time? Like, was it an issue for him to get dressed up and do all that stuff too? Like.
No, he was kind of an upper mid card guy at that time.
Okay.
So he wasn't headlining. He hadn't made the move to the WWE yet, and he was still kind of in that WCW machinery where it was kind of those top old school guys, the WCW that, there was no way for guys like him, and Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero to ever, ascend to headliner status, which is why all those guys left and went to the WWE. And ironically, if a year or two later, the WCW just imploded because I think all of those smart wrestlers who left before the demise of the WCW, they saw the writing on the wall. When I Stuck Mojo, we did a music video in '98 with Diamond Dallas Page and some other wrestlers, and we collaborated with the WCW in a big promotional thing, which is how I ended up meeting Chris. That's how I kind of became friends with some of these wrestlers. Was we had this idea to do this cross marketing thing, a la Cyndi Lauper in the '80s. I mean, we at the time we watched wrestling on Monday night like like a lot of dudes do. And we noticed there were so many like Ozzy T-shirts and Metallica T-shirts.
Well, wrestlers, wrestling, the wrestling demographic, it goes hand in hand with rock and roll and heavy metal. I mean, definitely.
It does. And we didn't see any metal bands really trying to, somehow collaborate. So we were actually the first band. That's how Stuck Mojo really broke, was that we were one of the first bands that approached a major wrestling company and said, hey, why don't you let us play? We'll collaborate. Let's do a music video. And the music video was us setting up inside the ring, and the whole outside of the ring were our fans going crazy and stage diving off the ropes into the mosh pit. And it was a cool video, and it got lots of play and lots of attention. And and that's how I met Chris, because he was still kind of in that upper mid-card status at the WCW at the time. And so it was a good time for him because he had just had a severe sprained ankle right after our first couple of gigs. And it was great. Like I said, it was like it was meant to be, because Johnny Z, who runs Megaforce, or did run Megaforce Records, approached our manager about, and at the time this was Stuck Mojo's manager. Fozzy didn't have management because there was no need for it.
Wait, Johnny Z was your manager?
No, Mark Willis was our manager in Atlanta, but Johnny Z approached our manager in Atlanta about Megaforce signing Fozzy to do a record of cover songs.
Right.
And so Mark approached Jericho and I and said, hey, we got an offer to sign a deal with Megaforce Records. And I remember Jericho just saying, to record covers? Is he crazy?
That's what he told me. He goes, he couldn't believe that he was getting a record. And they were saying, he was saying, it was like, you guys are going to be the next Metallica. This is going to, and he's like, what? It's not even a real band.
We were in the elevator with Johnny Z. It was Jericho and I and Michael Alago, our A&R guy, and Johnny Z. And Johnny Z turned to Jericho and I and said, are you guys ready? And we said, for what? He goes, to be the next Metallica. It was like the most surreal, bizarre thing. We played covers. We dressed up in goofy outfits. We had fake names.
But you know what? It goes to show you, I mean, going back to what you said a little bit before, it goes to show you that sometimes it's like, the band that Stuck Mojo was your real band, right? It's just like the same thing with us. FozZ02 is our project. FozZ02 is our main project, and what we figured that our career would be based around would be our rock band. And then we had, just like you had Fozzy for fun, we had, we were doing kids music, and that was the way we were making our living. But we didn't think about it. We didn't put any effort into it. We just did it. And it was, just something that was fun, and it made us a lot of money, and it helped promote our real band. And it's amazing how that's just how life is. It's like sometimes when you're not trying so hard and you let your guard down, that's the thing that'll work, because right? You ever noticed that? Like, because there's not that pressure.
So true.
There's no pressure, and you're not trying to please anybody. You're just doing it for the love of doing it.
That's right. That's what I call pure motives. When you're just out having a good time, purely for the motive, which is to do it for the music. It's like you said, it's the analogy of the guy who just breaks up with his girlfriend and goes to the bar desperately trying to meet someone. It never happens.
Never.
It's only when you're completely happy with yourself, you're okay with being single, that it just and you're not looking for it. You're right.
Well, I think that's my new motto, by the way, is I'm not trying to be a rock star anymore. That's it. But now, does it work? Here's the question: does it work if you say you're happy and you don't try, but deep down you still want it?
No, definitely not.
That doesn't work.
You can't fake karma, man.
Damn it.
You can't. No. Like the universe can see through the fake bob and weave.
Oh, it's like the dogs; they can smell the fear.
They sure can. They can sense evil.
Because you know what? It's like I've thought about this, over and over again. Because you hit a chord with me when you said that before. You were saying, how the industry, you put all your people don't realize how much work it takes to be in a band. They really don't. Even when you are signed, it's almost harder. It's like once you get signed, once we had the TV show and we were sort of out there in the big leagues, it was even harder. It wasn't like it was easier. And
yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, and for every accomplishment, there's so many disappointments, and it's like it really takes a certain character or mindset to be able to endure this process. And, you know, obviously you've got it, you know, we're still doing it. I have no plans to ever stop doing this. But sometimes I wonder if am I putting, like, let me know if you felt this way with Suck Mojo. Like, do you feel sometimes like you're almost putting some pressure on yourself to be like, okay, we have to, this next record has to be this, or this next song has to be this, or the video has to be this. And if you did let go of that, you know, I wonder if do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, did you ever feel that way?
I do. You know, and Jericho beats me up about this a lot, in that I don't get caught up in any of the, you know, like he showed me the Revolver magazine. We had this huge spread that they did a write-up on Fozzy in the latest issue. And like, I
like the way you snuck that in there. Nice plug. I like that.
Yeah. Of course. But I don't really care about any of that stuff. I know it helps, but what I really care about is meeting my own expectations, and that's the thing that, like, for me, makes it easier. And I wasn't always that way. I used to always, like, here's the old school Stuck Mojo model. We were signed to Century Media, and this was long before In This Moment, and they had Lacuna Coil and stuff. As a matter of fact, like, we were their biggest selling American band for years. We would go, and their distribution was through this company called Red. And at the time, Red was terrible. And I say that lovingly because they were terrible for us. We would go, and we lived in a van 10 months out of the year. And then the other 2 months were spent writing and recording the record. Then we got back in the van. That was our life. And we always opened up. We would open up for Typo Negative, and then this band from Sweden, Drain, was the opening band. We were the middle band, but we had a van, and both the other bands had, like, buses and massive crew and all this endorsement gear. And here we were. We just had a van and a trailer and no endorsements. No one would touch us. We couldn't get any MTV play. But it made us a better band, because it was almost like we bottled all of that stuff into the ferocity of going out there, and scorched earth policy just destroyed. And that was our motto for years. But every day we'd get one hotel room, and after sound check, we'd go to the hotel, and we'd open the Yellow Pages, and we would call every music store in the area, and we would write down a list. And we would just like secret callers, shoppers. Hey, do you guys have the new Stuck Mojo album, Rising? And they would say, no, we don't have any. Do you have our last record, Pig Walk? Stuck Mojo's Pig Walk? You have that album? No. So we would call every music store and try to find out all of the stores that had our product. And then we would call the record company the next day and say, why were we in Chicago playing with Testament in front of 1,500 people, sold out, and yet there's 6 records in all of Chicago metro-wide? What is the point? We're out here touring to promote the album. You only have 6 freaking albums in the entire metro Chicago area. How are we supposed to succeed? What is the point?
Right.
Because, you know, we're getting a $25 a day per diem per member. So each guy in the band is living, and this is on our 3rd album.
And this was Century Media you were on?
Yeah, this is our 3rd album. We're long in the game at this point. And here we are living off $25 a day per guy. None of us have our own homes. We live with either our girlfriends or, you know, people just assume, man, these guys must be millionaires because they've got albums and songs on the radio.
You think that's bad? You think that's bad? Imagine if you had a TV show. What the expectation? My friends would call me out of the blue and be like, "So, Paulie, are you on your yacht?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, we go out to dinner and be like, you know, everybody thought that me and David were going to pay for it. I was like, "Oh, you know, Paulie will pay for it. He's a famous, TV star now, celebrity." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
It is amazing, the perception of it, isn't it?
Oh, it's crazy. And you know what, though? I don't blame him, because I had the same perception. I thought everybody, if I saw someone on TV, on a music video, or if I heard a song on the radio, or if I saw a record in the store, those guys are living it up. And you know why? I'm reading a really good book right now, and I'm learning a lot about what really happened with the industry. Sebastian Bach recommended it to me on my podcast, actually, called Appetite for Self-Destruction. And you should check it out. It's so far so good. I mean, I just started it. But some of the stuff that they're talking about is, excuse me, the 80s when with the CD boom, that the CD when that came out, that really like rescued the industry from what was going on after the post disco, when disco like really crashed and there was a lot of like sales plummeted, and CDs and albums like Thriller and artists like Madonna, and all of a sudden all the hair metal bands, like the 80s was thriving musically, like the profits were going through the roof and they was selling. So what happened was, the expectation of what it is to be a successful musician was so different than if you think about back in the day. I mean, think about like, in the 60s or the 50s. Like, think about the people we think of like Little Richard, the pioneers. Those guys were broke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Hendrix, I can't imagine it was, had a summer house in overseas and a house here and this and cars and this and all that. I mean, I don't, not the way, Michael Jackson had it, or Poison or Whitesnake or all these bands. So all of a sudden the perception was different. The money was different. Everything was big, big, big. And that's what we sort of lived through. I mean, you're probably a little bit older than I am, I think, right? But
well, I'm 41. So I grew up, like my high school age was the mid 80s.
Yeah, see, I was like in kindergarten, I think.
Yeah. So you have lots of years of pain left in this music industry.
Oh, I do. I'm just in the middle of the pain right now. I'm just feeling the pain. But, I mean, think about your perception of when you saw those bands, when you saw Guns N' Roses and Poison. It's basically rap artists and hip-hop artists kind of took that over. Like, they took the ball and ran with it, because then when you look at those guys, they're the rock stars of the last, century.
Totally.
Not century, decade.
But it's faux rock stars. That's the thing about it. The hip hop guys, the labels lease them a fancy car or two, and then they put them up in a home. But the label owns it all. It's like they don't. And it's crazy. It almost makes me sad for them, because they live it up, and obviously all of that expense is recoupable. And they have a 2-year stretch where they live great, but they're not really making any money. They're just, their
it's
lifestyle
all smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors.
Right, it is. And then when it's over, it's over. I mean, it's literally over, because they have nothing. They didn't even buy the cars.
Right.
They didn't even buy the houses. They were leased.
Well, Sebastian told me, he said the best advice he ever got was Doc McGee, who was managing them, at the time when they first hit big. I guess it was when they toured with Bon Jovi and they first made it and the money was coming in. Doc told everyone in the band, go buy a house. And he said that was the best advice he ever got, because that's what he still, out of everything that he had, that's the only thing he still has and that has any value. You know what I mean? So he has that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like that, I mean, it is sad if you think about it, because people don't, and you don't realize it until too late, unless you have someone who can kind of mentor you. But I mean, think about it. When you're 19, 20, 22, whatever, and you're up and coming, you don't know. I mean, who the hell's going out there? I read that book by Donald Passman, All You Need to Know About the Music Business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the book, man. That's the shit right there. I was reading that, but even that I couldn't understand. Like, it's like the whole thing with publishing and recouping. It's such a lot to take in. It's a very intimidating concept when you really don't know, and you find out, unfortunately, too late. I think that's what happens to most people, is they find out too late. That's why you get all these people like Billy Joel and, suing his brother-in-law or whatever that is, and the Stones, and everybody winds up going bankrupt and suing this guy and suing that guy because they find out. But if it wasn't for those people that screwed them, they may not have gotten to that point. That's the catch-22. You ever notice that?
It is. It is crazy. And the thing about it is like you said, it is a learning process. And unless you've got a very experienced manager, a very experienced attorney who's willing to hold your hand and walk you through it the whole way, there's no way to know. I mean, I signed a deal with, I'll leave the name out, but I released a solo album through a pretty decent-sized record company in 2005. And they flew me over to England, and we sat down, and they told me these ridiculous things like, you're going to be the biggest priority on the label. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Of course, at this point, I'd already heard this several times before from multiple labels, so my filter was already in play. And then when I went back, I had a meeting at the East Coast office, Northeast office in New York, and had a big sit-down meeting there at an expensive steakhouse, and we sat and talked and all this.
Well, did you say steak? Did you say steakhouse?
I said steakhouse.
Oh.
Yeah. So at the bill from the steakhouse was on my itemized expense report. So they bought me dinner and then charged me for it.
Oh.
Okay?
That's terrible.
So you're like, dude, you think you're rolling large,
right.
man. You just signed a big deal with a pretty big label, and they're going to put your first solo album out. Stuck Mojo's still rolling good, and Fozzy's doing great. Man, I'm on top of the world. I'm thinking, yeah. And then you get your itemized, you know.
Dum dum dum.
So I bought Morton's for 9 people.
Oh my God. Oh, Morton's. That's where you went?
Yeah, like, dude, you're killing me, man.
Dude, speaking of Morton's, and this is a nice segue into the other part of this podcast, which is it's all about rock and roll and food. So I always have to make sure I squeeze that in there. And since you brought it up, not me, so I'm just gonna run with it. But Morton's, I went to for the first time in L.A. and then I was talking about I had who would we talk? Oh, Glenn Hughes. You know Glenn Hughes?
Oh, I've never met him, but I'm a fan. Yeah.
Right, you know of him. Okay, so Glenn Hughes was on my podcast when I did the LA podcast. I did 3 episodes out there, and he was telling me about Morton's, and we were just going off on it and salivating and going crazy. And I only been there once, and I had the filet, and it was excellent. But have you had the Chilean sea bass there?
No, I haven't.
Okay, see, he told me I have to get that, and I'm a sea bass fanatic, and I'm just trying to find someone else who has had it, and so, give me a little perspective on it.
You know, I never get to fish at a steak place. If I go to Ruth Chris, or if I go to Morton's, or if I go to Bones, or one of the kind of more high-end steak joints, I always get the steak.
You got to get a steak, yeah.
Yeah, because I told Jericho a funny thing one time. We had a steak, and it was part of catering or something at a nice venue that gave us, usually catering's terrible, but for whatever reason we got steak at this venue, and I looked at Chris and I said, it's been so long since I've had red meat that didn't cost 99 cents.
Wait, your catering wasn't too good?
Catering is usually average in the States, but in Europe, catering is always the bomb. And that's the thing, is like, that's why, I mean, normally, Stuck Mojo, we were a rap rock band, okay? So when the rap rock trend died in the late 90s, so basically did our career in the States. But luckily for us, it's still been great for us in Europe, so we still go over a couple times a year. And for us in Europe, man, the venues are awesome. They have, I don't know, have you toured Europe yet, Paulie?
No, dude, you're making me so jealous right now just talking about it, because it's the
one. We'll have to go together, because
yes.
it is the best, because the venues are amazing. The PAs and the lighting is way better than any. I mean, unless you're at the top U.S. venues, even the smaller 500 to 800 capacity venues in smaller towns have badass PAs and great lights. The backstage areas are amazing. They always have chefs. So, like, you get up in the morning off the bus at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever, breakfast is out, okay? So you've already got that. So they're cooking to order, okay? And then around 2 o'clock, they bring out lunch, sandwiches and stuff like that, salads. And then for dinner, the chef has got like 3 or 4 different entree items and desserts. I mean, dude, I can't lose weight in Europe on tour.
I was going to say,
so
dude,
good.
When we did the KISS tour, bro, I'm not even kidding. I gained 10 pounds on that tour. And you know what? Actually, that's not as bad as it could have been a lot worse because of the way we were eating. I mean, their KISS's catering was unreal. It was amazing. I mean, I haven't been to Europe, so I can't compare it. I'm sure maybe the quality of food would have been better, but for as far as catering goes, this was like top notch. And
that's awesome.
We
we
couldn't play though.
That's not. Yeah,
Rich, we couldn't play.
Tour with KISS. That's a little different from doing clubs in America.
But what I'm saying is we couldn't. But it was terrible because we couldn't play because we're so like food to my band is like alcohol, or drugs to like Motley Crue. Like we have no discipline. It's like even now I'm trying. I'm back on my regime. my regimen, I should say. And, and I'm doing pretty good, but it's like we always fall off because food for us is a drug. And on that tour, we were on stage, like literally I was burping between notes. I'd be like, hey, everybody, how you feel? We would look at each other like, I can't move. So what we used to do is we got smart. I started bringing, and I still do this when we go to like any kind of shows, like we're opening for a big band where I know there's going to be good catering. I actually bring my own Tupperware.
Ooh,
yeah, see, and I know it's cheesy, but it works. And I just put the food that I want, and then I pick out after the show because after do you ever notice like after you get off stage, you just your appetite is just insatiable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
You're always looking for late night food. Absolutely.
Nothing like pigging out after a show. That's like my favorite thing to do. I love it.
Well, I tell you, the best part of your technique is that the Tupperware is see, we always did the plate, and you just take your plate and stick it in your bunk in the bus.
Yeah, and then you put like a pet bounty over it.
What happens if someone puts a blanket or a pillow on it or something?
Yeah, I don't do that. I've done that before too. I don't like it. And the Tupperware is good because it seals in the flavor and it protects it. I'm telling you, that's the way to go. That is my recommendation for all you touring musicians out there. Tupperware.
That's actually brilliant. That is really good. I'm gonna then when I move forward, when we have younger bands open for us, I'm gonna tell them it was my idea.
Oh, you motherfucker! Listen, that's okay. You can steal my ideas. I don't mind because as long as you admitted on air, it's recorded that you said I'm brilliant.
True.
I am brilliant.
That's true.
That's all I need to know.
You are brilliant. You are brilliant.
Now, if I'm so brilliant, how come I can't figure out a way to get this? I got to get us to superstar status. Maybe we got to go to Europe. That's what we got to do. I think we'll love it.
Smoke over there, man. The kind of music that you guys play, that kind of like classic approach to hard rock, is massively huge.
I know. But here's the question: How do you get over there? I mean, we can't afford to do it on our own without a label. We're independent. It's going to be impossible. Are there ways to get like promoters to to fund it, or I mean, how does that work?
I think what you guys should probably look at doing is if you've had lukewarm reception from U.S.-based labels, why don't you just do what Hendrix did when he came out in the States, and it just like people knew he was great, but they just weren't sure about it, so he just went to Europe and looked for European support. I mean, because when I first heard you guys, I was thinking, man, this is kind of like festival rock.
Yeah.
Like every time that there's a band like you guys on a festival in Europe that we play on, it's always like the big band of the day. Everyone loves like the just four on the floor hard rock, big anthem hook choruses, and be huge. There's a lot of European labels that have decent presence in the States, but have huge presence in Europe. That maybe, I mean, it is hard unless you've got somebody bankrolling you. It's virtually impossible to tour Europe on your own.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, I was talking to Chris about doing some stuff with you guys. We're working out a deal where, if we clean your bus and if we cook and clean and drive the bus and roadie for you, Chris said he might take us out, with his lackeys. We'll do your laundry. I'll dry clean it, all his wrestling outfits and his tights and stuff. And no, that won't work.
I think you should do it. We should definitely plan to do the UK together. The flights are cheaper, and the UK audiences are crazy. I mean, they're amazing.
I heard.
It is great. As a matter of fact, I know that in the fall we're going back to do a full tour because we're going over in May to do the UK, but it's only 4 shows. And
it's already in the. Just so you know, it's already. I'm way ahead of you, my friend. I'm way ahead of you.
Well, we should go. It should be FozZ02 and the FozZ in the UK in the fall.
FozZ02. It's the FozZ02 tour.
That is huge.
You like that? Fozzy.
I love it.
Well, listen.
As long as I can borrow your Marshall cap, we're good.
Well, tell me real quick because we got just a couple more minutes. Just tell me something as far as food-wise. Just give me like a place. It could be a chain restaurant or it could be a something local to you. I mean, I usually prefer local stuff. Like if someone came to Atlanta, but like just give me something like a place that you just love to eat and what you recommend at that place. Go.
Well, there's a place near here called the Winchester, which is kind of like a southwestern steakhouse. It's like the whole decor is like a ranch, and they specialize in steaks and kind of surf and turf stuff. But the best thing they have is called adult macaroni and cheese.
What? Oh, wait! Don't tell me what it is. Let me guess. It's macaroni and cheese served by a topless waitress, and then as you eat it, you get a blowjob under the table. Am I right? Am I right?
You're right. You're right.
No?
Except for that it's done by someone from your own family. That's the drawback. Yeah.
See, I knew there was a reason I don't travel down south.
No, it's like macaroni and cheese, but it's like instead of being cheddars, it's like Havarti cheese, a really creamy, light color cheese. It's got goat cheese in it. It's got caramelized onions in it.
Oh wow!
And it's just unbelievable. It's great, and you can get it as an appetizer with your little, like your mini, 6-ounce fillet or something. But it's off the charts. And my second go-to in Atlanta is a place called Nancy's Pizza that does the real Chicago humdinger, super deep dish pie pizza, which I'm a big fan of because it's got the croissant butter crust. See, I love New York style pizza, but I'm also a super big fan of the croissanty crust Chicago. I don't know why, but I'm hooked.
You're a croissanty crust kind of guy?
I am. I love
croissanty crust.
French.
I like that croissanty crust. Oh.
So what's your
good.
place? Well, next time I'm up in New York, which is in just a few weeks, tell me where I need to go.
Well, you got to go. I just was there again. You got to go to Peter Luger's for steak. Best steak in the country.
Well, I mean, we are playing BB King's, not Madison Square Garden. So let's step it down, okay?
Well, you know what? BB King's is actually pretty good. Their food is actually really good. But you know what? If you want to do this, what if we do after sound check? I mean, see, they're going to give us food. That's the problem. So it's already, unless you want to go for lunch. Yeah, we can Tupperware it. But if you want to go, look, I'll throw it out there. My treat. Honestly, my treat, if you want to meet up before we load in and have like a quick lunch, like maybe at noon or something, let's go to the place that we eat on Z-Rock on our TV show. We eat there all the time on the episode, and in real life I go there too.
The place where you get burgers from?
No, it's the place where you get the ribs and the brisket and stuff. It's the barbecue place called Hill Country.
Okay.
Hill Country. And it's just like real authentic Texas dry rub stuff. I mean, I wouldn't go too crazy if we're performing that night, so I would say maybe go in and get just a little sampling of it. But if I highly recommend. I think it's some of the best barbecue you ever. If you like dry rub, authentic Texas.
I'm way into it. Yeah,
so let's do that.
Awesome.
Come on, let's do it.
It's a date.
Yes.
Paulie Z, Rich Ward. We'll drag Dr. Jericho down.
Yeah,
there too,
come on. We'll bring Chris down. We'll bring a little camera. We'll tape it. For fun. We'll use it. Maybe we'll make a little webisode out of it.
I still can't get the picture of the adult macaroni and cheese.
I'm telling you, that's going to be in my restaurant because I'm going to open up a restaurant one of these days, and I'm going to have the adult macaroni and cheese, and they're going to be like, "Well, what does that come with?" I said, "A blowjob under the table." What are you talking about?
Yeah. See, that's where you're going wrong. You said, "Hey, help you pinpoint where you're going wrong in the rock and roll." If you're going to do rock and roll, you can't have plans afterwards. You can never, your only plan is to be absolutely committed and married to the life of poverty and rock and roll.
Right. See, I think that is where I'm going wrong because I have all these plans. I have all these things that I want to, I was going to open up a school and I was going to have this and I have lots of plans.
Education?
Yeah.
What else could be at odds with rock and roll more than education?
I'm going to change. I'm redefining cool, my friend. I'm sick of
look. You were the guy that just was giving me grief 45 minutes ago for talking about rock and roll's only about boobs. What are you doing?
No, but I think there's a nice fine compromise between titties and education. I think it's a balance. It's like Z-Rock. That's the essence of our show. We work with little kids in the day, and we're influencing the next generation of people, in a positive way. And then at night, having 2 girls suck my cock. What's the big deal? What is the big deal? I don't understand it. You don't think
it's a Renaissance man. You are a Renaissance man.
I'm a Renaissance man. Come on, man. All right. Well, listen. On that note, Rich, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Did you have a good time?
Man, I had an amazing time, Paulie. Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you, and I'm really looking forward to the FozZ02 debut maiden voyage at BB King's. It's going to be a cool gig, man, and knowing that I'll be sharing the stage with your manly prowess is just it's setting it up, baby.
Yes, it is. Yes, I've heard that before. Yes, I'll make sure. I'll make sure I don't my manliness doesn't overpower the audience too much, so I leave a little bit for you guys too. I'll tone it down just a bit.
Listen, when Jericho comes out there, whatever manliness has left the building will be regenerated.
Tell Jericho he better watch himself. I'm gonna knock his ass out. Body
slam. It's so funny because he always gets threats. Like, he's such a peace-loving guy, and yet everywhere we go, everyone wants to kill him.
So
it's true though. It's true though. You watch. You hang out with. I know you and Chris have hung out plenty of times, but you may have experienced this. If you hang out with Chris long enough, you'll know just about everywhere you go, there's some dude in the corner sizing him up, thinking, he ain't as big as I thought he'd be.
You ain't so bad. You ain't so bad. All right. Well, listen, Rich. Plug your website real quick. Just tell everybody. April 28th is the show, by the way, at BB King's with Fozzy and FozZ02. And you want to just plug any websites or anything real quick?
Just FozzyRock.com and, of course, ZRock.com as well, because from now on it's nothing but brotherhood moving forward. We will tour the world and conquer. It ain't like Kiss. I mean, the catering ain't gonna be that good, but nonetheless, it will be a good time because
it'll be better than White Castle. It won't be White Castle.
No, definitely no White Castles, but there will be many late night. Are you into curry?
Yes, actually. Not, as long as it's not too spicy. I can't take if it's too hot, but mild I can take.
I'm into mild and medium as well. So when we're in England, every night it's a ritual. After the gig, we all go out for a nice Indian curry. It's amazing.
I like it. All right. Well, listen, Rich, thank you so much, and I'll see you. I'll see you on the 28th.
Sounds good. Love you, Paulie Z. You take care, man, and look forward to it. See you then, baby.
Later, bro.
Later, man. Bye.
All right, so there you go. So maybe there'll be a FozZ02 tour. That would be awesome. We'll keep you guys posted about that. But definitely, if you're in the New York area or the tri-state area, come to the BB King show because Fozzy doesn't play very often. Hopefully that'll change. But to see us and them in the same on the same bill, I think it's going to definitely be worth the money. And you never know what'll happen. Also, if we do some jamming or something, I just feel like something interesting is going to come out of it, just because it has to. It's just the law of Z-Rock. So anyway, we still have a little bit of time left on the podcast, and I was thinking we'll get Benny Boy on, and we'll talk a little bit about the Slash album that came out that I'm very excited about. Excuse me. So. I think we have him on hold already. Let's put Benny through. Benny, you there?
Hello, I am.
Oh, you there? Hey, Benny boy.
I'm here.
Benny boy. So, we were going to talk a little bit about this Slash CD or album or
Slash.
iTunes. Yeah, Slash. It's called Slash, right? I don't even think there's a name, right?
It's called Slash, but on the cover it has the R and F and R thing. So I've heard some people kind of unofficially calling it, R and F and R by Slash.
And
which is a little misleading. It's not really a hard rock record. There are a few tracks on it that are in that style.
Well, what do you think?
More of the rock tracks are on the bonus version, actually. But
bonus? What? Back up. What bonus? I don't got a bonus.
Well, it's one of those iTunes things. Like if you buy it in the States, in the American iTunes, you get one bonus track, and if you buy, I think the Australian or the Japanese has two.
See, that's bullshit. That's bullshit for a second. Wait, hold on a sec. Why don't they put bonus tracks on the actual physical disc? Are they trying? Are they basically trying to get people to stop buying CDs? I don't get it. I thought the whole point was they want us to buy CDs. It doesn't make sense.
You know what? That would make sense. Actually, I was a little pissed because I bought the Best Buy exclusive version that has a T-shirt, and I don't have the bonus track on there, which is featuring Beth Hart. It's like a ballad, and I'm just kind of like, this is a definitely a Best Buy edition, and for some reason, I guess they felt like, oh, you fucker, you got a T-shirt already. You don't need a
you don't need an extra song. We're gonna screw you out of a 99-cent song. Well, let me ask you a question. For the the iTunes bonus, is it only included if you buy the whole album, or can you just buy the bonus?
No, it's unfortunately, it's one of those deals where that's how they get you to buy everything, and then you get the bonus on top of it as a nice little, cherry on top. It's all marketing. I mean,
those rat bastards.
Yeah, all these bands do it with these, Best Buy, Walmart, Target. A lot of these versions have extra tracks, and they think the diehards will buy the album 3-4 times, and some of them will, amazingly. So it works out.
Well, me being a Kiss fanatic, I would buy a physical CD 3 or 4 times if there were different songs on it and different covers and stuff.
You would buy that more than 3 times.
Yeah, I'd buy 3 of each 3 times. So it'd be like 12 of them.
12 different colors.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't get the idea of downloading something multiple times. There's nothing different about that. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. Like when Kiss put out Kissology, like they had the bonus disc. Remember, Best Buy had one, Walmart had one, and there was a third one. But that makes sense because then you're buying the physical thing and you're getting something different with it. I don't know. I don't get the whole digital because then you're just gonna have 2 or 3 versions of the same song, and then just to get that one bonus song.
Well, it's weird because. And we'll go into this because hearing the bonus tracks, there are 2 or 3 great rock songs, and I wish they'd been on the record. It's mostly, it's a very, there's a lot of ballads and mid-tempo songs on the album, and when Slash really rocks out, it's a rarity on the album. So I think you would have had a better mix,
Well,
I think of it as like a B+ album.
Who was on the bonus tracks? What singers are featured?
All right, the bonus tracks you have. You have the Paradise City version with Fergie and Cypress Hill, which is it's okay. It's a bit of rapping on it, which is odd, but Fergie does the chorus and she really belts it out. She's great. You have one called Sahara with a Japanese singer. And his name is I think Koshi Inaba. I'm not sure if that's right or not, but then you have this other track, Baby Can't Drive, with Alice Cooper.
Oh,
Flea,
cool.
Steven Adler is the drummer, and Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls, which is great. Actually, Sahara and Baby Can't Drive are great. And then the last one I think you have is or you have the iTunes bonus with Beth Hart, which is called Mother Maria, which is all right. It's a ballad, and the last one is called Chains and Shackles with Nick Olivieri from Queens of the Stone Age.
Wait, so there's a decent amount of. So it's almost half an album worth of material.
It's a lot.
That's crazy.
It's a lot of Sahara, Baby Can't Drive, and Chains and Shackles are great. Like I wish they had been on the regular record because they're hard rock and you don't get as much of the rock.
Well, let's talk about that.
My favorite songs are the rock songs, like Dr. Alibi and the Nothing to Say are probably the most interesting for me because they're really hard rock.
Well,
the Iggy Pop song was okay.
I like the Iggy Pop. Well, let's explain to people that may not know because it did just come out, so a lot of people might not know what we're talking about. So basically, Slash put out a new CD, and pretty much every song features a different a vocalist that pretty much everyone's well known. The only one that I didn't really know was Rocco DeLuca. I'm not really sure who he is. But,
I'm not sure who he is either.
I checked him out. It was like it's some sort of like indie kind of band
Yeah.
that he has. But anyway, so that and everybody gets one song except Miles Kennedy,
Right.
which I found out I think is probably because Miles I heard is doing the tour for this.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so that's probably why. But basically, we got everybody from. Let's go through it real quick. We got Ian Atsbury, Ozzy Osbourne, Fergie, Miles Kennedy, Chris Cornell, Andrew Stockdale, Adam Levine, Lemmy Kilmister. Then there's an instrumental with Dave Grohl and Duff, which I didn't love that one.
No, I didn't love that one
Yeah,
either.
Kid Rock, M Shadows, Rocco DeLuca, and then Iggy Pop. So there's a vast array of people, cast of characters on this album. What is your overall thought? Just give me your general before we get specific. General thought of the album.
I think with the bonus tracks, we're getting to like an A- album. Without them, the regular record is, I'd say it's a B+. There are a lot of tracks I like. There are some that I just kind of think they're good, but there's no energy to them, like the Miles Kennedy tracks, or
I don't.
like Back from Cali.
Yeah, I didn't like Back from Cali that much.
The tracks I really like are the Ghost, the Ian Astbury track. I think Promise with Chris Cornell. I think even the Rocco DeLuca track is really interesting. Saint is a Sinner too. Dr. Alibi, and nothing to say with M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold.
Well, here's
great track.
My only problem with it, I think I give it a little bit better than you. I haven't heard the bonus, but I think even without the bonus, I think it's a solid A. I think it's a total the whole. I don't think there's a bad song on the record really. The instrumental one to me is the weakest song, and I do agree with you that like the Miles Kennedy stuff. It's funny about him. He's got a great voice. Like technically, he can sing, but something about his voice I don't connect with. Like I just don't feel it. Like, and the melodies. I just didn't think his songs were. They kind of were just like filler for me. I hate to say it because I think it's good, but
I think you definitely want more dynamic tracks where you can hear more of his personality. Something just come out of him, which isn't on these. I mean, it's weird because the record is kind of an anomaly, don't you think? Like Slash, I was just listening to the new Jeff Beck record before, and Slash isn't Jeff Beck or Joe Satriani. He's not an instrumental.
Right. It's weird.
But all the bands he's done have kind of fizzled out outside of Guns N' Roses. The record makes you think that this guy really belongs in Guns N' Roses, and this is a band that if Axl Rose has his way, he'll never be in that band again. So he seems like a musician out of place if you think about it.
Right. Well, it's funny you mention that because my overall review of this, and my friend who gave me the CD to listen to originally was he's a Slash fanatic, and I am too, but he thought it was amazing. Like straight, he would say A+. And for me, my only criticism was it doesn't sound like you said, it's not like when you listen to Satriani or even Santana. When you listen to a Santana record, it's the same thing. Yeah. Every track has a different vocalist, but the album is consistently Santana and Satriani or any of these guys. And for me, there is no other than the leads of each song. Other than that, there's no evidence that Slash is on the song. There's no personality that this is a Slash record. It's almost like these songs are it's a compilation of songs from the albums of the respected singers. Like the Ozzy song sounds like it's from an Ozzy record featuring Slash. Does that make sense? Like it's almost like these are songs from these artists, and Slash was the guest as opposed to the other way around.
And he knows this because, Velvet Revolver was kind of another extension of Guns N' Roses. It would be like Eddie Van Halen doing his own album, and, you go through it, and then it's like, well, here's the two-handed tapping, and it's like you've got staples and trademarks that have to be associated with Slash, and maybe they're not really present on the record as much as people would like. It's like he really just wanted to prove that he wasn't just the hard rocking Guns N' Roses guy, that he really was versatile.
Well, I think
that it definitely is on there. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. I think you're right. Like I think it's definitely diverse, but that's my only criticism. It's not a Slash record. It's a record. To me, it's a compilation of songs different artists featuring Slash, as opposed to a Slash record featuring these artists. For example, the song is basically the easiest way to describe it is like, here, let's go through a couple of them. Ghost featuring Ian Atsbury. Sounds
great riffing,
great song, but it sounds like a cult song. It doesn't sound like
like a cult song with like a Rush lick opening the track.
And the Ozzy song sounds like an Ozzy song. Oh, I love the Sword with Andrew Stockdale, but it sounds like a bonus track from a Wolfmother record. You understand? And then the next song is with Adam Levine, sounds like Maroon 5. How do you go from Wolfmother to Maroon 5?
It's almost like Slash is like the character of Venom from Spider-Man. Like he's just like a suit that gloms onto the onto the singers and their whatever band they're coming from. Right.
He relies really on his singers more so than, because I'll tell you, Slash is one of my, Ace Frehley / Richie Blackmore, Jimmy Page. Those are the guys I live for. And Slash, I love with all my heart, but he really is a guitar player, like you said, in a band. Not necessarily a guy who goes out and does guitar records. So he's relying on his band and his singers. And all these songs are really extensions of the singer, not so much Slash. But I think either way, it's a great record. I really do recommend people get it, just because I think it's solid music and it's songs. And as long as you're okay with the idea of each song is going to sound like it's from a totally different album, then you're going to be fine. If you're expecting it to sound like Guns N' Roses with Ozzy singing. See, I thought it would have been cooler to have Ozzy sing over a Mr. Brownstone type song.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean?
It's more of Ozzy's modern rock kind of, I don't know. It doesn't quite... But the one with Alice Cooper is great.
I got to hear that.
Should get those bonus tracks.
I will find a way.
Talk about R and F and R right there.
All right, well, Benny Boy, thank you so much. So either way, we both agree that it's a rock solid record. Either way.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
worth
a B+ record for me. Definitely worth owning in a hard rock collection.
It's worth the money. You should get it, whether you get the CD or the iTunes. It is worth the money. The songs are good, production's good, everything is really good about it. But now you've heard our review, so at least going in, you know what to expect. Just every song's gonna be. But I think honestly, I liked everything. Even Iggy Pop everything was good. The only one weak for me was the like you said. I think the what was it? Carry Me Back from Cali. And then the instrumental was okay, and I didn't love the Kid Rock one. Was good, but not as good as some of the other ones. But anyway, definitely recommended. Benny Boy, thank you so much for your wisdom and your your way with words. You have a way with words. You're a wordsmith.
I appreciate that. You have a way with words and music. Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a way with words. It's called fucking them up. It's called butchering words. I butcher.
It's called mumbling.
Yeah, see, I'm like Slash. I feed off of my guests. See, without you make me sound smarter because you say
please.
stuff. You say like you talk smart, and I don't talk so smart.
You talk smart.
All right. Well, anyway, listen, guys, thank you so much. That's the end of episode 21. If you want to email me, I'll get to that stuff next time. I promise. Paulie at thepauliezshow.com. Or you can listen to all the podcasts at iTunes and just type in the Paulie Z Show, or go straight to thepauliezshow.com. The band's website is FozZ02.com, myspace.com/FozZ02, and facebook.com/FozZ02band. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is twitter.com/FozZ02Paulie. And I think that is all for now, all right? So, Benny, I'll talk to you later. We'll pick another CD coming out. If you got any good ideas, let me know. And otherwise, I'll talk to everybody later.